Bitcoin, altcoins, crashing. Should you be worried? Not really. History tells us that. We're going to go through that in this video, and more importantly, why I think anyway, smart investors and smart people who have been in this space for a long time are going to be buying pretty hard. When you zoom out, it's just noise. Let's be honest here. So let's get into it and let's get into the screens. So the first thing that is vitally important is to understand the fact that February has been one of the worst months on record for February. It's been pretty bad. Obviously, we're going back to 2014 sort of levels, which is mad. 31% drop there, 22% currently. Madness. And I know this isn't my regular sort of slot for doing stuff, but I am changing content. Ultimately, I need to cover this. I've been away for a week. That's awful. I was not expecting that, personally. It's been a rough one. But what is a bit odd is the fact that there's been some really positive news. You can see here, SEC says the meme coins are not securities underneath federal law. I know. Don't really like meme coins anymore, do we? We've also got the SEC have ended investigations into the parent company of MetaMask, Consensus, which is also pretty good news, really. And the final bit of news is the obvious in the room is the fact that Coinbase's case has been dismissed. I know. So why the drop? Let's talk about it. Now, when we talk about the news, it's often relayed as fear, uncertainty, doubt. What I just showed you was actually relatively good news. And there was a lot of uncertainty around those news headlines at the time. And often you see news as a bit of a kind of a chain reaction. It's like, oh, a way to blame the news for why shit's gone wrong. Tariffs, for example, could be one situation, other elements as well. But let's talk about the obvious. Bitcoin was due a correction, right? We have had a big run to the upside here, right? And we were expecting it. Now, in my opinion, I wasn't expecting it in February. I was expecting it more March, April time, bit of a rally from the Trump administration, another little break, a little bit higher, nothing crazy though, and then into a correction where we will settle down. And I've often talked about looking at this price action thinking that could happen here. Was I expecting us to do a $17,000 move on the weekly time frame? No. But let's look at the noise, because I think this is where people get caught out. Now, if we zoom out a little bit, everything we see is noise. Every single cycle, okay, when you zoom in a little bit, I'm going to go to the past cycle, we get a thing called a correction. And when you're on top of it and looking at it and really on it, you start to notice the corrections, right? So obviously we had the coronavirus. Boom, that was a bit of a rough one. But even on this run here, we had a little correction, right? Let's pinpoint some of these corrections, right? So even that one there, you could argue a 16% move. Nothing crazy. And the next one was, oh, hold on a minute, a 21% correction. You got this weekly horrible clanger candle, which would have been pretty rough if you were on one side or the wrong side of it, which was actually a 16% mentalness move. And not too long after that, we had another situation where it dropped another 11%. Bit ugly, I know. And when we zoom in a little bit more and look even further, again, as I say, we have had a horrible correction. This was a 31% correction. We had another one here. And I know you're probably thinking, God, this is boring. But this is not unknown to us. And we all went higher every single time. The big one, the big boy one, was this one, which was, I'll be honest with you, puked. Yeah, 56%. What do we do after that? Went higher. What does that mean for us right now, though? Well, we're correcting, funny enough, right? And this is what we've got. From the high, which was here on Inauguration Day, to current prices, we are down roughly 26%. Nothing crazy, I know, but I understand why people are fearful. And also we're going to talk about what sort of sentiment this has brought, because it's a certain type of person, in my opinion, that have been shaken out. So this chart here is basically showing us that new people who've been holding for months, weeks, days, are the most obviously the ones who are got the realized losses or ultimately selling. That's the situation here. People just getting destroyed because they're aping in, and margin calls getting hit, liquidation, stop losses, whatever. and people ultimately quitting. Simple as that. And why? Because they don't know what they're doing. They're just buying it because they think it's good, it's going to make money. But when it goes the other way around, no, that's not the case. But again, it goes on to the money wealth situation, the inflows of the ETFs here. It's why people lose money, because they don't understand the game, literally. And you might find that in this boomer kind of circle that we've got with institutions, because they don't quite understand that the volatility and the speculation of Bitcoin is different to the S&P, it's different to the NASDAQ, it's different to individual stocks in certain points as well. It's a different beast. You get used to it. It just takes a bit of time. If you want some wealth generation tips and content, I will be focusing on that in the future. Please do hit the subscribe button. If you want to see the walk, the transparency, it's all on Patreon. I want to do more journals, more stuff. I'm going to be dollar cost averaging to a lot more things. Again, so optional. You don't have to do it, but ultimately, my content will be very different moving on. Now, I'm fully aware that people are going to be going, well, quantitative easing, the M2 print, it's going to save us, right? Not necessarily. And I agree with Brett here that basically QE tends to happen in certain cycles, and more often than not, it happens when shit's hit the fan. Usually when markets are hitting the floor, GDP hitting the floor, unemployment is probably a lot higher than what it is right now. And that's the thing, right? I'm going to say it. I'm going to be very, very open with you. I don't think we're getting a recession anytime soon, because everything seems to be absolutely okay in terms of the data. We don't have to do QE. We don't have to do certain measures to prop up the market. What does this do? Props up the fucking market. It creates liquidity. It creates obvious situations, right? What do we need? Well, we'll probably need lower interest rates, obviously, because that's going to stimulate more and more borrowing. But that's not going to happen overnight, is it? But let's just talk about the obvious in the room. Going back a step, go back to that Bitcoin chart. We've done this, right? All this noise, corrections, when there's been QT. QT has been going on for a long time now. Quantitative tightening, not quantitative easing. Does it matter? Not necessarily. What does matter is your altcoin bag probably getting destroyed right now, which makes sense. But let's talk about opportunities, right? That chart I just showed you before is about liquidity, QE. But another way liquidity comes into the market is when there's opportunities presented. Basically, right, if you've destroyed all the weak hands and the strong hands are already there, because let's be honest here, the stronger hands tend to sell too, right? They do. They tend to rotate capital. They tend to buy low, sell high, and then repurpose that to buy. Greedy bastards. Greedy, right? Got to do it. Little piggies. The bad piggies get slaughtered. The good piggies get wealthier. Also known as fatter, let's be honest, right? Status of wealth when you were back 100, 200 years ago is basically how big your belly was, because you ate more, right? Same in the finance world, right? So what we're seeing here, in my opinion, is a perfect time to start buying more Bitcoin, basically, in my opinion, right? Now, this is not financial advice in any shape or form. If you get destroyed, you get destroyed. But I would rather buy Bitcoin at $80,000, $81,000, $82,000 than I would have done at 109. And I've been doing a dollar cost average challenge on my Patreon. Every Sunday it goes out. I didn't really like buying up here, but it was automatic. But I bought a lot more down here, $1,500 worth not too long ago. Literally just thought, bollocks, why not? Let's go for it. Because the upside targets could actually be up here in terms of these sort of levels. And you can nearly double your money if it goes a bit higher, right? That's the important part. And Bitcoin is all about creating and keeping wealth. Altcoins, on the other hand, not the same. It's cyclical, it's more speculative, and it happens in a thing called alt season, which hasn't really manifested yet, right? So when we go on to the likes of alt season, when is it coming, Ash? Oh, well, this is kind of positive because we're kind of not gone any lower. What's happened is Bitcoin's dropped and altcoins haven't dropped as much, weirdly. And we've had that little sharp shoot a couple of weeks ago, which is fine, but what altcoins are you going to buy? Personally, there's only a couple that I would even consider. Solana/BTC lost its level, and we're at levels, right? We've not seen this level since 2023, Christmas 2023. Seems like a bit of an opportunity, but that could also melt lower, so I'd be mindful of that one. But again, you look at the fiat price of it, $137, is not too shabby. Would you buy Ethereum? Would you want to buy Ethereum? Why wouldn't you want to buy Ethereum? Well, Ethereum is currently just dying. And is this the bottom? We don't know. These are 2018, 2019, 2020 levels, by the way. Again, you could look at the likes of Cardano. Is that going to go even lower, back down to the start of this entire move? You get the idea? So probably a lot of negativity around altcoins, which is fully understandable. But is that why we should be buying them? Oh, that's ultimately your call, isn't it? If you've done your research, you've got your conviction, you're happy with them prices, I would rather buy these levels down at these levels than I would have at the peaks of those troughs and the moves, right? Wouldn't you? That's kind of the obvious in the room. Just be mindful of liquidity. Just be mindful there's a lot of altcoins. Just be mindful of potential hacks. Just be mindful that people will probably want to buy Bitcoin versus an altcoin. So this is nothing we've not seen before. That's kind of obvious. That's history. The market will always shake out the weak hands, just like every single cycle. It happens, right? Personally, I'm not going to panic. As I've alluded to it, I'm going to be buying on these Bitcoin dips. I already have with my DCA account. I'm going to buy with my personal account. The ones who stick around will be the ones who'll be the wealthiest in the future because you've overcame it. And realistically, if you bought in 2017, 2018, you would have been blown up a number of times and you've lived to see the other side of it, which is awesome. But yeah, don't be exit liquidity. There's a video here on the screen. Watch it. It will help you a lot.